Hi, I'm Mark Rossano, founder and CEO of C6 Capital Holdings, coming to you from Primary Vision Network. Today we're going to keep the show short. We're going to focus on just the Primary Vision Frac Spread Count and just a little bit of color around kind of where that's going to go over the next couple weeks in honor of Juneteenth. Next week we'll get back to our normal schedule, and hopefully we'll have a nice little conversation with one of my great friends, Seema Shah, to talk about retail and retail trends and what she's seeing for the consumer. So just to dive right in, this week's Primary Vision Frac Spread Count came in at 78, which is above our 69 from last week. Now, again, we talked about how we were going to kind of see that rise. We were assuming about 75. So 78 is kind of right in line. We should get a little bit of another increase over the next several weeks, especially with crude kind of going to where it is, averaging at about 40. So one of the big things that we're going to have to focus on is really where are realized prices going, and how are realized prices going to continue to either rise or kind of stay here, and how E&Ps are going to manage that. So when we think about it from what was last year, last year at the same time was 377. So you get an idea that obviously we're still well off where we were previously, but we're starting to kind of balance out. We kind of hit that trough and started to increase. Now, the interesting component of what's come out for today is we actually had a decline in the rig count. So again, we've had several declines of rig counts, but we've seen the actual frac spread count going up. And this just is a clear indication about DUCs. We're essentially starting to finish and complete, drilled but uncompleted wells in areas that have a bit more profitability at the current strip. Now, again, profitability at the current strip is a relative term because, how much money are you actually making? But it's really, there's a sunk cost involved because the drilling has already been completed. They're sitting there. It's some way to help manage the decline curve, because we've talked about in the past how E&Ps are really going to focus on getting a decline curve, as close to zero as possible, which given where current spending is and frac spread counts at 78, it's really hard to get to a zero. But the idea is to try to get as close to that, which we're assuming about 10 to 15%. With a mixture of workovers, refracs, and new completions. So just to give some additional color as to where are we getting the additions. Over the last couple of weeks, we had Appalachia, we had some other gas plays that were really kind of attracting some of that new activity. But now we're starting to see that turn around in oil. Specifically the Permian, we bottomed. We had a little bit of an increase that should continue as we sit in this current price environment. You're going to start to see some reactivations within the Permian. The Eagle Ford and the Bakken will continue to see some additional interest as we go forward. Now, when we look at the current setup, when we're looking at realized prices, again, they've gotten a little bit better. Realized prices, just looking at some of the as we close, we're seeing about $40.50 to $41 on some realized prices at some specific locations. And the ones that we look at the most are always going to be LLS, which is Louisiana Light Sweet, and Magellan East Houston, to get an idea of what's going to be the appetite for exports. Now, right now, exports remain low into Europe. We're at about a 10 to 12 month low. That could change. We're still at June 19th, so we can possibly see some additional sales. But as we said on Wednesday, we see exports remaining in a 2.5 million barrel a day range with that, or we could get an extension to 2.7. But right now, we're comfortable saying that this week we're going to be at about 2.5, and just given where exports are projecting, we're going to see additional builds within that pad 3. The other key aspect that we've seen, and when we think about where is our oil going, who's buying it, we still have a record amount of vessels heading to China. We talked about on Wednesday how China's already at 53 or so million barrels of floating storage, with more crude heading that way in terms of in transit. Nigeria is still struggling to sell about 60% of July, with which means that about 6 out of every 10 of their barrels of their ships are going into the bay for short-term floating storage. So there's really a tale of two cities. We think that there's going to be some headwinds as we go forward. in terms of, where is pricing going to go. The fact that it's still here is impressive in its own right. But again, crude has almost become a risk on product. Where when people feel better about COVID, about the reopening of economies, people jump in and start using that as kind of a reopening way to play the market. So, we just to kind of round it up in terms of where we think going forward, we think we're going to get some additional increases in the frac spread count. They'll be focused really in Texas, New Mexico, and maybe a little bit more in North Dakota. But, we're starting to just as we kind of flattened out and rallied, we think we're going to kind of hit that ceiling relatively soon, especially in this current pricing environment. So thanks again for watching. Again, I'm Mark Rossano, founder and CEO of C6 Capital Holdings, coming to you from Primary Vision Network. And for those out there, have a very happy Father's Day. Thanks again.